Review time, and Will Smith in popular film Independence Day said it best. Welcome to Earth. Please enjoy this selection of fizzy wines and sparkling biscuits. Kindly provided to us by Inside Up Games, this is designed by Maxim Tardif, and on the box it says it's presented by Connor McGooey. In Earth you'll be playing cards from your hand into your own messy quadrant of plant-based possibilities, pumping up the value of these cards with different shapes and colours of bits of wood and trying to score shared objectives before other players can snaffle the best points. And you'll also perhaps be throwing as many of your cards as you possibly can into the trash, like some sort of raccoon who's had a midlife crisis and decided to go back and right all of their wrongs. Crucially though, this is one of those crunchy little points-based puzzlers where you'll be doing your own thing on your turn and not really interacting with many other people. Except here's the twist, it's always your turn. Even when it's not your turn, it's still your turn. I'll come back to that. But first, all the title of this game, don't I feel cheeky? I came into this expecting the full glories of our globe. But where are all of the faunas? There aren't even any humans in here, the protagonists of the universe. No, it's all just vegetables and trees and other things that children don't want to eat. Now please note the deceptive circle around the logo, members of the jury. Definitely gives the implication that we're going to be talking about Earth, the original big wet globe. When in fact, no. This is a game about the other kind of Earth, aka soil. Yeah, that brown stuff you find in gardens that children really don't want to eat. Come on, Jimmy, eat your vitamins. For pudding, we've got minerals. Throughout the game, you'll be planting your own tableau of up to 16 cards. And while your main commitment is going to be plants, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy a little bit of fauna on the side. Just a little reference there for furries who are also cheaters. That's almost 4 jokes in one sentence. I'd like a Nobel Prize. And the plant puzzling you're doing here, well, it's pretty rich. You're slowly building out your own oblong of flora, but the position of these cards matters for more than one reason. Some cards have effects that activate other things in the same row or the same column, and some objectives specifically want you to have certain cards in certain places. And most crucial of all rules in this positional plant-based nightmare, you can't ever extend beyond a 4x4 grid, and these little coloured bits at the bottom of each of the cards that you plant are abilities that will activate. When do they activate? All of the time. On my go, their go, her go, your go. There are 4 actions you can take. You can plant, you can compost, you can water, you can grow. When it's your go, you take one of those actions and you do a thing, and then you all activate all of the powers of that colour in your tableau. Left to right, top to bottom, traditional book style. And the red, teal, and kind of green, yellow, kind of grello, those 3 of the 4 types of actions will also activate any cards that have the little stripy kind of wild thing on. Those cards pop off all of the time. Action number 1, planting. Planting is easy. Just take a card from your hand and you plant it, but you've got to pay the soil cost. Soil, that's the plant's money. But you can also get soil instead of sprouts when taking the blue action, it's watering. Do the cards in your tableau have free slots for those little green sprouted cubes? If they do, then you water the plants and they sprout, but they don't grow. That's different. Growing, it doesn't cost any soil or water. What a hot bargain. No, what you're going to be doing is putting a different shape of wood on top of that card in a different place. And when that's the last one of those wooden shapes that you can place on a card, you place a different kind of wood on top of that piece of wood. And these borderline spicy wooden shapes, they come in 4 different colors: yellow, red, gray, and green. What do these 4 different colors do? Nothing. They're all exactly the same. You just whatever you want. Vibes. Seems kind of ridiculous, but that's board games. Finally, let's talk about composting. See this gigantic communal deck of cards? I can't even pick up all of it with one hand. You're going to be drawing from this frequently throughout the game to build your hands, and then you're going to be also occasionally just taking cards off the top of this or out of your hand and just chucking them into the bin as if nothing matters. You get points at the end of the game for that because decay. The specificity of the theming just doesn't really work here. When you water things, they don't grow. And some plants sprout but don't grow, and vice versa. One win for realism, though, are these amazing little green sprouty cubes. A vegetable that was originally perfectly square until over years we bred them selectively to make them perfectly round, much like we did with dogs. Although eventually we did breed dogs not to be round because it just wasn't as funny as we thought it was going to be. There's so little difference between me taking my turn and me taking a turn as part of someone else's turn. Even with just 2 players, I frequently found myself having to say, no, it isn't your turn, it's still my turn. I'm waiting for you to finish my turn so that you can have your turn and I can take yours. And as the game goes on and your tableau gets chunkier and more carefully honed, these cascades of actions get a little bit silly. You'll be drawing up some new cards and then maybe purposefully composting a bunch of them. And then maybe you'll be purposefully destroying part of your precious points compost pile in order to get some more growth cubes that you then know you're going to decay to get some more soil maybe, or maybe to draw up more cards. There's a beautiful cycle of growth and erosion within this game that it doesn't land the whole thing thematically, but it's pretty cool. And I'm sorry I've taken this long to point this out, but sweet baby Jeffrey, these cards. I've had less complicated times with Spanish public transport. That's because I don't speak Spanish. Their public transport is very good. I don't like England. There's a sea of iconography on these boards and on these cards, but really there's not that many different things. And what you start to realize is the actions that you take when taking one of these 4 actions are also things that are going to be happening when your cards get activated. So you also got this grid-based 4x4 puzzle where you're trying to optimally place cards to get the most points at the end of the game and during the game, but then also trying to optimize your little machine. Isn't that just hellish? Isn't this just too much? Don't panic, this game is not nearly as complicated as I might have just made it out to be. Relax, just breathe. Eat some more soil, enjoy yourself. A little while ago, we reviewed Furnace, a game all about this left-to-right activation chain. And yes, it's horrible. I loved it. It's deeply unpleasant. I'm incredibly bad at it. I definitely recommend checking it out. Here though, with everything else that's going on, it's mostly kept to be fuzzy enough that it doesn't feel too frustrating or cruel. Before you know it, you've got loads of soil and loads of sprouty cubes. And activating your chain of actions usually just gets you more of things that you already have a lot of. But the evil geist of optimization is still here. It's just hidden. And I like that geist. Because listen, I think especially for newer players, if you are told, sorry, no, you can't do that. You didn't have enough of that, so you don't get to do anything. That sucks. And in some games, being told that you failed is the game, and I love it. But here, I like the fact that what it does is it says instead, oh, you get some sprouts, but actually you filled all of your cards with sprouts already, so you don't need any more sprouts. You can't have any more. And for people who don't play games as much, they'll probably just be like, I've got maximum sprouts. That's the focus here. I've got max sprouts. How can that not be a good thing? But meanwhile, players like myself who have been on this rodeo for so long, I can't even remember a time when I wasn't trying to optimize my sprout-based incomes. Well, for me, I'm told, hey, you get to collect 3 sprouts, but you've only got room for 1 of those 3 sprouts. And I am furious that I have just wasted a potential income of 2 sprouts. We need to find a machine that kills sprouts for money, and we need to find it right now. And in contrast to most Eurogames, which tend to feel quite exponentially, boof or boom and bust, this feels much more like a gentle ecosystem. You're growing things and then you're allowing them to diminish so other things can grow. And it means that that final part of the game is really exciting. Timing it so that everything is maxed out just as the game ends, Well, that's kind of spicy. And actually, that's pretty much the only manner in which you have much interaction with other players. And I think the fact that you're all doing the same thing at the same time and throughout the entire game makes it feel as if you're interacting with people, when actually you aren't. And sometimes that feels kind of silly, especially when you look at the kind of lightning bolt event cards. Many of these event cards sound quite dramatic, and you can play them at any time in the game, which means in the middle of someone else's turn you can go, "Boomf, there's been a tropical storm." And it just affects me a bit, literally doesn't do anything to you. When the only real interaction outside of when to end the game is competing for these shared objectives. Honestly, I think this game shines brightest with just 2 players. In that regard, you can be keeping an eye on what other people are doing. And these little colours at the bottom of all the cards, they make it quite easy at a glance to just get a sense of like which of these different coloured actions are going to be most optimal for the other player, and what can I try and do to make it so they have a slightly less good time. But one of the game's greatest strengths is also probably my biggest criticism. It constantly keeps you busy. Everything you're doing feels crunchy and nice, but I can't quite work out when playing this game, and other games like it where you are constantly playing, whether or not I'm actually being rewarded for being clever while I'm playing, or if it's simply just not giving my brain a chance to breathe. This game is satisfying and solid, and I will happily play it. I really like it, but there's no spark here, right? There's no big bang. And aesthetically, on a physical level, we've got all of that good stuff that we are always talking about. Different shapes and heights of components, giving this texture to the area where you're playing that's really pleasing, but also really easy to immediately read. If satisfaction and distraction and little pictures of mushrooms are all that you're really looking for in a game, then this is great. I just don't think it has much soul. It would be easy for me to say, oh, this game is maybe a bit boring just because it's about soil, but I can imagine a game about soil that's actually pretty exciting. You've got moisture levels, pH levels, nutrients. I don't think that the subject matter of this game is why it's perhaps just a tad pedestrian. You can't blame soil for everything, Mr. Earth. Ark Nova! You could check that game out if you like the look of this and you want something that's just animals. Forget about soil, forget about mushrooms. I had mixed feelings on it, watch our review, see how you go. In terms of having games where you have cards that all pop things off and it's your go when it's not your go, hey, how about Race for the Galaxy? That classic card game, doesn't have any plans. But mechanically, it's quite similar to this in a bunch of ways. But Earth, got some final business. This game should have been called Soil, or Ground Stuff, Stuff from the Ground, Honey, I Soiled the Kids. That's all I got time for. And speaking of plants, I'd better get that baby into nursery. A nursery is like a place where you put plants